reminder that This Is Your Life and First Edition can be seen next week. On RTE1 now, a special film portrait of Phyllis McGhee, a woman of substance.
People say, oh, I'd love if there was an eternity. Most people, as we know in our society, believe in an afterlife. I couldn't bear it.
Phyllis McGhee and family at home last Christmas. At first glance, a fairy tale picture of the ideal Irish family. Father, mother, two beautiful daughters, love and laughter, pictures in a family album. The story of Phyllis McGhee too reads like a free enterprise fairy tale. The girl born on a small farm in South Tipperary, who emigrated, did well, married and came home to do better. The brilliant businesswoman who reached the top of Bord Foilta's small hotel sector. The woman who recently retired to enjoy her personal and financial good fortune in her Georgian house at Leeson Street Bridge. But nothing was as it seemed. When these pictures were taken, Phyllis McGhee, her husband Sean, her family and friends, her doctors, all knew she would soon die from cancer. What set her apart was how she coped with that knowledge. In death, as in life, Phyllis McGhee went her own way. Like the author of Sliabh na Mon, she was alone, all alone, alone in the crowded hall of Irish society, set apart by her radical religious, personal and political views. For one thing, she was a lifelong socialist. Not an armchair one, but a May Day, red flag, red-blooded, marching socialist. In Britain in the 50s, she was active in CND. She chanted Ban the Bomb beside Bertrand Russell. She faced the police in Trafalgar Square. And every Sunday, she heckled at Hyde Park Corner. She marched against the war in Vietnam, and unlike the flowered children of the 60s, she never mellowed in her convictions or lost her sense of humour. Back in Ireland, Phyllis was an active member of the Workers' Party, the Divorce Action Group, the Anti-Apartheid Movement, the Nicaraguan Support Group. She helped organise the Book of Condolences after Enniskillen and the Peace Train. Pictures of old friends, the writers Brendan and Dominic Behan, the singers Ewan MacColl and Peggy Seeger fight for space in her walls as new causes come crowding in. Clippings about her doings from Pravda, photos of far-off heroes like Mikhail Gorbachev in Moscow, or President Daniel Ortega of Nicaragua, who took tea in this room. Francesca de Rossa jostles for shelf space, somewhat surprisingly, with political rival Charles Haughey. For the Rossa, she hung a large election banner across the fine facade of her Georgian home at Leeson Street, to the scandalised surprise of some neighbours. But Phyllis McGhee never bothered much about what the neighbours might say. Not in politics, and not in love. Her marriage too set her apart from the mainstream of Irish life. Phyllis McGhee was a divorcee. Having divorced in Britain and remarried, she found so much happiness in her second marriage to her husband Sean that during the divorce referendum, she chained herself to the railings of Dáil Éireann in an effort to win the same right for others. But what set Phyllis McGhee finally apart in a highly religious society like Ireland was her attitude to death. Phyllis McGhee did not believe in an afterlife. She faced death with no consolation of church or clergy, but rather with the same courage and curiosity which had brought her all her life into conflict with the conventional wisdom of her own country. All her life, her only real resorts had been reason and reflection. And at the end, she summoned them to her side and found them still true friends and comrades.
Phyllis, if you remember at Christmas, we were looking at the album, pictures from 2 years ago when you looked so active and so alert. And then you were called in and you got this terrible, terrible news. Can you tell us how it happened, how you first heard and what your reactions were?
I was living in Dublin and had decided I wanted to run a business, and I bought a guest house, and I was very excited and thrilled with this business. It was doing very well, and it involved quite a lot of the talents that I have. And suddenly I began to feel very unwell and very tired, and was taken into hospital, had a hysterectomy, and was diagnosed as being malignant. Well, the shock was it was quite unbelievable, unbelievable. It took about 3 months to come to terms with the fact that I, this healthy person, suddenly has this sort of deadly growth inside in me. But my husband mainly helped me to get over it. I remember I spent about 3 months almost hysterical. Particularly at night, I would go to bed and go to sleep and pretend to be very brave, and I let my husband go to sleep because he'd got to work every day. But in the small hours, I would start to cry and go hysterical again, and he would wake up. And one night, he was at his wit's end, obviously, and he said, why are you? Why do you think that it shouldn't be you? Why should it be anybody else? And while it now seems rather cruel, it was the best words were ever said to me. And I began to sort of pull myself together after that. And then I got, I had a couple of years. Then when I really laid myself into the business, which is I'm a great believer in work, the Protestant work ethic that is so prevalent in Protestant countries. And I know it to be true. The work ethic brought me through. I worked so hard. And then I had a break of about 2 or 3 years. And then I began to become terribly ill again, terribly tired and ill. And I went through a period, it was so bad again when the doctor told me it was back, because I really believed it had gone, because you meet so many people who get cancer and they live to be 90. And I thought I naturally had to be one of those, but unfortunately I wasn't. So I took the second diagnosis almost worse than the first. And I heard about, when Luke Kelly was alive, I remember he was always talking about going to the Bristol Cancer Help Centre, but he never did. Like a lot of Irish people, I suppose he put it on the long finger. But I went there, and it was truly a turning point in my life, where the belief there is that only you can have control over the malignancy of cancer. And with the aid of modern medicine, I'm a great believer in science. So I went there, and it sounds incredible, but when I arrived in Bristol on a Sunday, I went from London, where I had gone to have an enjoyable holiday, but I had actually spent the week in the Royal College of Surgeons library and in the medical department in files, reading up all these horror stories. Everything that I read was dreadful. And I was too mean to buy the books. They priced about £200. And the young man in the shop in Foyles used to say, "May I help you, doctor?" And no, I plodded along through all these huge words, and I found out that really it was, and indeed it was stated there, that the type of cancer I had, which is a very rare cancer, it only hits 1 in 1 million of the population, called leiomyosarcoma. And once it comes back, it is known as the cancer of the forest fire. So it wasn't a very happy story to arrive in Bristol with. And when I arrived in Bristol, I got out of the train to get in a taxi to go to the help centre. I couldn't speak. I was so overwhelmed with sadness. And the taxi driver said, "I think I know where you want, Mrs." And he said, "If it's any comfort to you, the people that I bring here every week, I don't recognize the same people when I pick them up to bring them back." And from a taxi driver, I never forgot it. It was really quite marvellous. And I went there, and it was a miraculous place. Only 12 people were taken. They have a form of therapy, vegetarian, very strict vegetarian food. Now, the food wasn't really marvellous, but then I never thought of the British as great gourmets. Anyway, it's not their strong point. And but the people that I met, they were there from America and most of the British Isles. And interestingly, on the previous week, they have an average of 2 Irish people a week, and they'd had an Irish nun the week before, who sadly, Sister Peter from Galway, has since died, but not before she has established an equally marvellous centre in Galway called Slánú, which should be a great help to Irish people. And on top of being just as good as Bristol, it has delicious food, wonderful. Now, to get back to the effect that the cancer has had on me, I have now come to terms at this stage that despite my own efforts, despite all of the adaptations that I've made to what I was taught in Bristol, I have come to a point now where both my own efforts and modern medicine seem to be failing me. I have had 9 major operations. I beg your pardon, I've had 6 major operations, 6 months of chemotherapy, 2 months of radiotherapy. And the only thing is, what's great about it, I can't say it's been a failure because I'm still alive. I've had another 5 years of possibly the best part of my life. So when people say in magazines and on television that the last years aren't the best, they can actually be the very best. They have certainly been with me, quite fantastic. The things that I wanted to do, it's amazing. And even the small things that I want to do, I have left nothing undone.
Phyllis, you've obviously reached great peace of mind, but there was a time when you didn't have peace of mind, and a lot of that had to do with pain, didn't it? There was a time you were running in and out of hospitals and you were in pain, and then something happened the last time you were in hospital, something that changed everything for you.
My last stay was 12 weeks. Normally it would be about 10 to 12 days, but the last one was 12 weeks. And when I was there, I was in great pain for the first time that I suffered such immense pain. And one evening, a friend came in who was a doctor, and I just said that I wasn't able to chat or to talk. And she went and contacted a friend of hers, Dr. Michael Carney, who has just come back to this country, fortunately for Ireland, and is an expert in pain management. He's more than a doctor, he's a doctor, an expert in pain management, a philosopher, and a very lovely and charming man who seems to be absolutely dedicated just to the elimination of pain. In fact, I didn't realize what an important field of medicine just pain elimination is. Obviously I didn't, because I never had it before. So she telephoned him, and he said he would be delighted to see me. He was in the hospice in Harold's Cross. Now, I never knew anything about the hospice. To me, the hospice was a place where old ladies went to die. And because when I had my guest house, I lived near there, and I used to pass. And strangely enough, I always had a habit of diverting from it. I found it depressing, the idea of a hospice. It was a place where you went to die, and die sadly. I've been proved very wrongly since. So Mr. Carney came to see me. Now, I've had 2 miracles in my life. One was going to Bristol, and meeting Michael Carney was the second one. He interviewed me for, I suppose, about 3/4 of an hour in detail about, I never knew there was so much you could say about pain, the nature of the pain. Is it a griping pain? Is it a colic pain? Is it, how long does it last? Where is it? Where does it travel to? Where does it spread to? And it was quite amazing. So he put all this down in a book in very neat and very precise handwriting. I was watching it. I was quite interested in it. And then he went away, and about an hour later, I couldn't believe it, I was given this little magic box which was pinned to my chest. It was just like a video box, and a little smaller. And in this, in a syringe, was the, if I could call it the recipe, the magic recipe of the combination of drugs that he felt was going to kill my pain. Now, that is, I think, 4 months ago, approximately. I have never had a pain since. It is an absolute miracle.
And your head is clear.
My head is absolutely clear. I'm in perfect health. I have only one great, I have had only one great problem. And that great problem was a really dreadful tiredness. so that even though I now had no pain, it was sad because I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't do anything. I had to have a nurse every day to give me my bath. I wasn't able to do any housework. But these incredible people over in the hospice, I then left the main hospital and I came home under the care of the hospice in Harold's Cross. And they have a home care service. And this comes out every day if you need them, or less so. And they supervise your drugs. Now, the amazing thing is this tiredness, which was now a blur on all the success they'd had in eliminating the pain, because now I'm just lying in bed pain-free, but I can't do anything. So every morning they have a conference on every patient. I mean, the individual attention you get, it's quite extraordinary. And last week they put me on to some steroids, and since then I've had the most amazing bout of energy, which makes the pain-free time I have so much more worthwhile.
You're very sharp now.
Yes,
and since
yes.
you're so sharp, maybe you could answer a question for us.
Yes.
Why are we so reluctant to manage pain in Ireland? Why are so many people do suffer, don't they? Unnecessarily?
Yes, an awful lot of people do. I would say, to tell you the truth, a lot of it is a lot of people don't actually want to say they have pain. They consider it's a moaning or complaining. That's one of the reasons. And there seems to be a reluctance on the part of the general medical profession to, I suppose, they're a bit afraid of what they call addiction, perhaps. I don't really know. It's something that
Do you think it's reasonable for people to be worried about addiction and people who've got serious malignant cancer?
take it, for example, for somebody like me, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I'm going to die, and I want to die in peace and tranquility, and it doesn't really matter whether I'm addicted to something or not. That's my opinion. But I'm not.
Phyllis, lots of people start out as anti-clericals and end up with religion. In your case, you seem to have always been consistent. You were always a consistent anti-clerical. Was this something that you learned, or could it have actually been in your own background, back in South Tipperary? I mean, that's not a place you associate with these views.
I lived in a rural area, and the priest lived in this massive wealth, relatively speaking. I mean, one priest, for example, that was a parish priest when I was a child, he used to tell us he had been to 20 Grand Nationals. Now, in those days, that was nowadays everybody can afford to go to the Grand National, but in those days, that was a major outing, and of sort of great splendor, like part of the Grand Tour. And he used to boast he'd been to 20, and he saw nothing wrong with it, and indeed his parishioners didn't see anything wrong with it either. You see, they used to butter them up, like, for example, when that priest had his 60th wedding anniversary, the people offered him an indoor toilet. And he said, no. He said, sure, aren't I going up the haggart all my life? So because he comes out with this little rural thing, they think, she was a grand, humble man. The fact that he spent hundreds of pounds going over to the Grand National didn't dawn on them, you see. They thought, a Grand Plain man, he'd be called. I never remember any part of my life where the religion which was preached to me was practiced. When I was a child, the first wake I ever went to, an old man had died. He died from a varicose ulcer which had bled during the night, and he had no help. I was watching, I was fascinated by a pattern of a blood stain on the floor, obviously, which was part of the hemorrhage the poor man had been left in all night. And it filled me with rage. Now, I would have been about 5, so that's 50 years ago. And you can tell then how long ago that is. And that rage has never left me. Whether it is curing sickness, or having a roof over your head, or dying in comfort, nothing, there isn't anything that money can't buy. And I knew that couldn't be right. I mean, how could it be? This man had worked all his life for all the neighbours around him, And now there were we, sitting around him who had died like the wretched of the earth, as they say in the Bible.
Phyllis, Yeats talked about Swift as having a save indignatio, a savage indignation about hypocrisy and injustice. You've that kind of savage rage too, haven't you?
I have never shut up, given out, and I never will, because there is no reason for this great injustice, none at all.
Phyllis, can we just move from South Tipperary, which in some sense, you know, formed your personality, to London, when you went to London, which in some sense formed your politics? Was that when you became officially political, so to speak?
After I went to England, when I was down in a very dreary part of the country where I never met anybody, called Dartford in Kent. I'm not surprised I read that's where Margaret Thatcher met Dennis. It was a dreary place and only dreary people could have survived in it. And they even more so than most. He owned a paint factory, and they tell me the fumes of paint are very dubious results. But however, I left that then and I went back to London. I then got very interested mainly in C&D, because the first fast food, the first glamorous food to come to the area of London was the Wimpy Bar, believe it or not. And Pat Arrowsmith, who was a member of the Committee of 100, lived just down the road, and she used to eat there, and occasionally I used to chat with her at the table having her cup of coffee. And then my children began to be born, and that kept me very occupied. Nevertheless, I did 2 marches with Bertrand Russell.
Would you think that was when you became a socialist, so to speak?
Yes, oh yes. You knew then. I mean, you saw the people who gave their lot. I wouldn't say it was when I was. Yes, I suppose I was utterly convinced of the rightness of socialism. Yes, it would be around that time.
The rightness of socialism would strike many people as a pretty provocative phrase, Phyllis, in the context of events in Eastern Europe. I mean, don't you see these events as an end of the things you believe in? I mean, or do you see them as a cause for hope somehow?
Oh, no, I think it's the beginning of everything great for socialism. I feel, at the moment, I was looking the other night at people pouring across the wall from East Germany, and I thought, why couldn't they? They just want to come and have a look. They're pouring back. They're like me. I don't want to be restricted to a pub down the road. I want to wander along. If I go down the King's Road in London, when I first went to England and I went to see the most, what were called weird pubs, we love to look at them. I don't want to stop at the first one. I want to go to every one of them. But the minute I've got to the end of the road, I want to come back to the first one again. And eventually I'm back in Ireland again. And it's exactly the same with people in Eastern Europe. Human beings, as Emma Goldman says, they must have laughter in their lives. And the interesting thing about it is that all the Russians that I ever met, and I have met an awful lot of them, they were all very joyous people and had an awful lot in common with the Irish. And I could tell them, I always believed that one of the things that people have in common more than any other is humor. Humor is the great leveler. And I found that we had an awful lot in common with the Russians in jokes and that. So I feel it's the beginning for socialism, because what people are going to find, they're going to find that joy is in freedom, and that freedom is in economic sufficiency. So I don't think that there is any question that Mr. Gorbachev hasn't got the right idea. Mr. Gorbachev is a man who wants people to sit in comfort and listen to Beethoven. And that's what I hope will happen.
Phyllis, many people would think it's a bit intrusive of me, a bit insensitive to come to somebody in your condition and start talking about politics and such questions. Do you consider it an intrusion?
Good Lord, no. Politics to me is from when eating, breathing, sleeping, being sick, being well, being happy. When we wake up in the morning, we have one of these little clock radios, and it wakes up at 6:30 to the BBC. And it starts off with politics. And then it is at that until we come over to our own radio station, and then it's at that until Gay Byrne or whoever at 9 o'clock, and then it's Pat Kenny, and then it's Marion Finucane, and it's the news, and then there are lighter programs. But at whatever level, it's all politics. You cannot live. I mean, how would the country... I'm often irritated. I've changed a little lately. I used to, for example, often be frightfully anti the establishment politicians, because I suppose I was a bit jealous of them because they'd all got their people in and I couldn't get my people in. But it's changing now. I've got a few of my people in, or at least I've helped a little bit to get some of the people I like in. But of the establishment politicians who were in, say, the Pádraig Flynns and all of these people, it wasn't until I really put my heart into canvassing in this country did I realize that no doubt, the Pádraig Flynns of this world had to do that basic groundwork in the beginning. And having got in, by God, they're going to stay there, and good luck to them. I mean, I hope to remove them. But in the meantime, I appreciate, no doubt, that they have had... I was in the Hotel Federation for 4 years, and I met an awful lot of politicians, and I changed my mind about some of them.
I mean, you admire them to some extent, do you?
I do.
I mean, it is a rotten job, isn't it?
It's a rotten job, and it's a very hard job, and I'm afraid I have to change. I used to, when I didn't know, I was guilty of that, always accusing them of being overpaid and underworked and all the rest of it. I can't say that that's the truth. I remember even being at a dinner with Mr. Wilson, the Minister of Tourism, way up in Donegal, and assuming he was going to bed in the hotel where the function was, where we were, but he was driving down to Wexford or Waterford or wherever. Well, I know it was driving down in a car or whatever. I mean, who wants to drive from Donegal to Wexford or Waterford? I don't think that I met a politician that I could say didn't earn his keep from this country.
Earn his keep. Even though in some sense you think that they
of course, in the other hand, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't agree with them politically. What they're going to bring up at the end is not what I want. I would say a lot of it was wasted, but they are still honourable men.
Your first marriage broke up.
Yes.
Did you get a divorce?
I didn't at that time. He wasn't interested at that time in remarrying, and neither was I. And I was on my own then for 12 years, as was he, roughly. And then, not until 12 years later, when I met somebody that I thought would make a suitable partner.
That's Jack?
Yes, yes. That I got a divorce. And of course, by then, it was so much easier to get a divorce. You got it under the new law, which was the total dissolution of the relationship.
Phyllis,
very sensible.
Do you think it's a matter of was it very important to your sense of dignity, your sense of yourself, to be able to get a divorce? Is it important to be able to get a divorce?
Absolutely. I tried for a divorce before it was easy to get, and I just dropped it through laziness, or maybe when the big bill for £1,000 came, I didn't have it or whatever. It was very expensive, I remember, and there was nothing to push me. But to be actually told by a judiciary in any country, you, a grown adult, that are voting for them, after all, you have voted to put them there, and they're telling you, look, you naughty little child, you marry that man or that woman and you stay with them because I say so. I mean, it borders on insanity. It's crazy.
Phyllis, what do you think the secret of a happy marriage is?
I suppose I have the supreme test of a fabulous, wonderful partner. A man who will care for you when you're terminally ill, when you're so far down that you're no longer a fit partner for anybody. That's the sign of a great partner, and he still makes you feel like that you're a queen.
He's very much in love with you, isn't he?
He is, as I am with him, yes.
He was telling me a while ago that he thought that the important thing was to give the other person freedom. He said he always tried to give you freedom.
That's right. I'm 16 years married to him yesterday. He has never once told me what to do. He's given me complete freedom, as you say, and then I've never wanted to do anything except to please him. It seems strange that if you allow one another complete freedom, through some strange reason, eventually each of your desires are to please one another, and that's happened with us. We've been very lucky. And we have a lot in common. We're both socialists. He's a socialist much longer than I am. He's a socialist, I suppose, for over 40 years. He was founder member of the Ballyfermot Co-op. That's going back a lot. He always tells a funny story of being condemned from the altar by Canon Troy in Shicor or Ballyfermot or one of these churches. They said he was a corrupter of young women, and he's always been very proud of that since, because the only young women in his life at that time were two girls he had working in the co-op to serve the customers, and he employed two girls because they didn't have any jobs. And at that time, he was too busy trying to save the world, as he thought. He had no interest in girls in a romantic way at all. So he always thanks Canon Troy for giving him his great romantic title.
Well, he was certainly very anxious to corrupt you anyway, he told me. You know,
yes,
he said,
yes.
He was telling me that he was giving me his own hardline definition. He's a wicked sense of humour, of course.
Has wicked black sense of humour.
Yeah, black comedy. He was giving me his own definition. He said if he went off and were unfaithful with someone, he wouldn't care. He'd be hurt, but he wouldn't care.
Yes.
But he said if she ran away with someone, that's serious material problem.
Right.
You know, this is a material problem. Real.
Right.
He just didn't want to lose you. It's very different from the average Irish version of a happy marriage, you know, where worry about unfaithfulness would be all, you know.
No,
and if you were unfaithful, then they'd put you outside the door, you know.
No, it's a lot of nonsense. I would feel exactly the same. And strangely enough, it never would occur to me that he would be unfaithful. But if he was, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, what is it, for heaven's sake? It's part of the basis of nature.
Painting time, but there's a catch. Trainer says you've got a match. Aaron Hot Cup Special picks you up like no other cupboard can.
Tomatoes, oxtail, mushrooms, beef, chicken, vegetables and croutons galore. That's what makes Aaron Hot Cup special.
Working on a building site, get no suntan, just frostbite. Aaron Hot Cup Special picks you up like no other cupboard can.
Don't dip a spoon into anything less.
Now, Shop Local brings the taste of quality at the right price, closer to you. Try our new range of Shop Local jams and marmalades. Get quality and value.
Close to you.
With Shop Local products. Now, real value is never far away.
The Milka cow is very special. She lives up in the Alps. There she is. The air she breathes is pure and clean because it's mountain air. She eats the fresh green grass and drinks water from the clear mountain streams. It's no wonder she produces smooth, delicious milk. Milk that makes Milka chocolate so tender and tempting. Heidi loves the taste, but even she doesn't know why the Milka cow is lilac. Why is the cow lilac?
And when yesterday is gone, tender cure can put things right. Taste and flavor never wrong. Calculates you to the light. Calculates you to the light.
You've got no time for routines, no patience for less than excellence. So for your hair, there's one way to go. Wash and Go puts effective shampoo, full-strength conditioner, fantastic hair in one step.
One shampoo does it all for you.
with shampoo and conditioner in one.
Phyllis, you told us there about your reactions when you were diagnosed as having a serious malignancy. You know, you were a reader, so you read all the books, you know, the anger and rejection and denial, and you worked your way through all that. But it's not easy, is it? I mean,
it's extremely difficult. Yeah. It's extremely difficult. In the beginning, you just can't believe it. That you're not going to be around anymore. I suppose it's a sense of our own importance. Then, of course, if you have a family, there's terrible personal grief in that you won't see them do their exams. I mean, you can be very material about it. You wonder, will they get simple things like success at school? Will they get married? You won't be there. And then I'm strangely enough, I'm very domesticated in that, and I can't imagine my home without me. And then I have a husband that I love very much and I have a great relationship with, and I just think how tragic that having found this marvelous relationship that it has to be cut short. So But then, having said that then, I worked through that and thought, oh, this is ridiculous. I mean, most people haven't had any of those things. And it was working in that way that brought me, I thought, I've traveled most of the world. I've met the most interesting people imaginable. I have been in politics. I have had an unhappy marriage, which I have hopefully solved, because my ex-husband is also happily married now, which is one of the things that I think is an achievement in both of our lives. I remarried very happily, so I have proved, for example, this might sound conceited, but it's a very pathetic state of affairs that an ordinary woman like me has to sit here and say that I proved a government and a nation wrong, that in a referendum they say, no, you stay married, we marry you and you stay married. But I as an individual have proved they are wrong, because I have broken the laws they request me to keep, and I have a very, very happy story to tell. My children are happy, my husband is happy, my ex-husband is happy, and I'm happy. And now I have come to, I suppose, the biggest crisis any human being can come to in their lives. I'm going to die at 54, hopefully 55. And I have achieved great happiness. I have this marvelous husband that if I had believed this rubbish, that this government has the audacity to tell me, how do they know what's right for me? It's an impossibility. But I have proved them wrong, and I'm very happy about that.
And yet you would admit that most Irish people looking at your life would say, she's an oddball, she was born on a small farm, and she ends up a socialist, a divorcee, and somebody who's prepared to die without any belief in an afterlife?
Oh, not at all. I have no belief in an afterlife. If I had, I would be terrified. You see, I can't ever understand. All the people that I know, most of my friends are practicing Catholics, and I can't understand. They're not all queuing up like lemmings waiting to get to heaven. I have never yet met anybody who wanted to die. And I feel that if I found this afterworld that they're always telling me about is so fantastic, I would be queuing up to get there. I mean, who would want my husband or my silly pile of bricks and mortar when there is this divine paradise waiting for me. You see, nobody has ever said that to me. And I've had all these labels pinned on me all my life. But strangely enough about the Irish people, when you meet them in a one-to-one relationship, they say, God, she's not really very much different from what we are at all. I mean, the friendship which I have had during my illness, I have been ill now 9 years, very ill, say, for 3 years. And the friendship which I have received from people, all of whom put those labels on me, it must come from some discovery that they've made that I'm really only like an ordinary Irish housewife that makes plum puddings at Christmas if they're lucky, and longs for a little bit of love and happiness in their lives.
Phyllis, can I just remind myself again, I mean, with pictures of Gorbachev on the wall, pictures of Ortega, pictures of half the politicians in Ireland, pictures of Pravda, can I just remind myself, given your politics, you're a socialist, given your politics, you're a divorcee, given your politics, you're an atheist. You did come from a small farm in South Tipperary, didn't you?
Which in fact was the very background that everything that Lenin talked and wrote about sprung. We were the kind of people that he was talking to and about. And I'm so thrilled and privileged that I could have quite easily gone through my life and still had that small farm mentality, that we were the center of the universe, which we were not.
You don't romanticize rural Ireland anyway. It's not home.
Oh, no,
it's not home to
no.
the fields for you.
Oh, not at all. Oh, my goodness, no. In fact, I must say that there was a book published last year, To School Through the Fields.
That's the one, sorry.
And I enjoyed reading little bits of it. But the part that I couldn't bear was there was no pain. And this is a nonsense. There was an awful lot of pain. I remember the pain of leaving my Clark sandals hidden in a ditch because my pals hadn't got any shoes. I remember the pain of the free shoe period, when the children went to communion and at Mass, and as they knelt down, the mark of indication of the free shoes was on the sole of that boot. Now, I was lucky. I didn't have to have the free boots. But I remember the pain of the children who had to have them, because everybody knew who had them and who didn't have them. And I can't understand how Alice Taylor, why did she not see the mark on the free boots? Because I did.
Everyone who knows you're struck by the fact that alongside the savage indignation, you also have a savage sense of humour. It's a very black, comic sense of humour, isn't it?
I can't see any other way to look at it. I mean, when the worst things happen to you in life, I mean, now, for example, I used to always worry that I'd be buried alive. And I have several friends lined up to make sure that I have a long wake. And I also want to be pricked somewhere with a pin to make sure that I'm really dead. Because I remember one time reading this horrible American magazine article about a new building project somewhere in New York, and it was built on an old graveyard. And when they were digging it up, finding these clawed coffins. Well, I don't intend that. I'm sure it was all nonsense, but I don't intend it to happen to me. So I'm going to be cremated. But I don't want to be burned alive either, so my friends are lined up to ensure that this doesn't happen.
One of your best black comic cracks was that you said the thing you would resent most about dying would be that you'd have to leave all your beautiful antiques and objets behind. Your house is full of lovely things.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I couldn't bear it. I feel very jealous and possessive about them because I've bought them over, 30 years. I know every scratch and every patina of every day I've owned them. And the idea of anybody else, I used to say, in fact, my husband, I used to say, would you get married again? And I said I really didn't have any objection. The only part I couldn't bear is the idea of someone shunting my antiques around and touching my furniture. I couldn't bear that. I know it's very materialistic, but that's how it is. If I could only bring them with me, but I can't.
Well, how would you describe your state of mind now? How are you now?
Completely content. I know that at the moment I'm on my energy-giving steroids, which help me along, but they have no effect on the serious cancer. And I'm completely content to know that any of these days or weeks or months that the terminal phase of my illness will come. But I haven't. In fact, I actually find it slightly interesting, because all the other phases of my life have been interesting, so I can't see that this would be any different. Dying must have an interesting side to it. It's a pity it has to come a little prematurely, but I have no fears whatsoever. Most people who are afraid of death are afraid of judgment. I would be. I'm afraid when I have a lot of parking tickets, or I have to go into court in front of an ordinary magistrate, and I'm fairly articulate. There's a certain fear, and that is the main reason. Well, I don't have that, you see. I'm afraid I'm a believer in science, not superstition. I know that to me death is just a taking of a deep breath and going into a beautiful sleep, the kind of sleep that you'd sometimes like to go to when you're having difficulty going to sleep. I imagine that my family will be with me. In fact, I know that they will. And I will happily go on what is, in fact, the end of a very natural journey. After all, birth, life, and death are all part of a very interesting and exciting sort of, how would you describe it? When you're a small child, you're always looking forward to everything. And then when you get to my age, you begin to accept everything that's going to happen. It's not so, you're not so uptight about it all. And now that I've come to die at approximately 54, as I keep on saying, I always like to add on a little bit, 55, 56 even. But according to my medical advice at the moment, they say that I have only a very short time. But I have no fears for it at all. You see, when I was going to school, I was filled with fear of death. I really was. I remember as a child being quite terrified of this judge. I imagined the look of Christ was very frightening. He always had a beard, and he was very angry. He never seemed to look upon us as the words that we were taught, interestingly enough, were of a very loving judge. But mainly the details that were given to us then were very terrifying. This man was there going to judge us so wickedly for everything that we had done, when in fact life had been a very hard struggle for most people. So I have I have no fear at all of death, none. I have just, in fact, I sometimes actually look forward to it with a certain, for example, I would much rather to die quickly than to be in a terminal state which was causing misery to myself and great pain to my family. But as for being afraid of death, oh, not at all. It should be interesting. There must be something interesting. No phase of life that is so much talked about could possibly be boring and dull. In America now, where they have a new glut of literature and books on grieving and dying and all of that, they actually have a respect for the Irish attitude to death. You see, there is one way where we really win out over other countries. We tend in one way to celebrate death once it has happened. We're afraid of it before it happens, but having taken place, we celebrate it. And the Irish wake, for example, is a marvelous idea of grieving and coming together and celebrating of life with the next of kin. And that awful word, the next of kin, but with the loved ones, although they sometimes aren't always loved ones. part of the great joy of my childhood was being sent to a wake. And we used to always look forward. I remember on one occasion there was a wake and some of the local Yahoo wasn't allowed in. And they went outside and they got their jacket and they tied it around the chimney. And then they tied the lock on the door outside, and we were all inside with the smoke from the fire. The man of the house had to throw a bucket of water. And they used to do things like that. And another time they would tie a piece of string onto the toe of the corpse, and when everybody was sitting around the bed, give it a little tug, you see. And the local people, no matter what sort of an old wretch had died, everybody would say, ah, he was a grand poor fella. And all of this was marvellous. So it was bound to have had, interspersed with the religious education which you got, which was very, very unfavourable towards death. Converse then with that was the fun surrounding it and the laughter, which I always found marvellous. So all of that has helped me, so I have no fear whatever, no, none at all.